Hi everyone, my name is Cristo Armando Carrasco Mendoza. This is my video submission for the National Debt Relief Scholarship, Solving the National Student Loan Crisis. And so the theme for this scholarship was to come up with a unique solution to solve the student loan crisis, which is about $1.5 trillion. So let's break it down real quick. Student loan debt is the second largest source of household debt, $1.5 trillion outstanding student loan debt, compared and trailing $15.8 trillion outstanding mortgage debt. Most recently, Democratic presidential nominees and the Trump administration have devised plans to ease student loan debt for borrowers as tuition costs increase and social justice becomes a more prevalent means in Congress to address social economic inequalities. These proposed plans fall into six categories. So the first one is to forgive all student loans. The second is to forgive up to a set dollar amount for all borrowers. The third is to forgive debt held by former Pell recipients. Four is to reform payment options to tackle excessive interest growth and to provide a quicker path to forgiveness. Number five is to change repayment options to provide more regular forgiveness. And number six is to allow student loan refinancing. So my unique solution would be a seventh category, and it would be to forgive student loan debt for the most vulnerable borrowers. Clause 1 is to forgive all student loan debt held by borrowers making less than $250,000 in discretionary household income, and to buy with the intent to forgive private student loan debt held by these same borrowers in the same quote unquote lower income bracket. So the second clause is to eliminate tuition at public and private institutions. This includes colleges, universities, vocational schools, and trade or technical schools. The third clause is for Congress to set the student loan interest rate to the prime rate and to also offer a new structure of payment plans for borrowers who fall under the same low income bracket. So under this payment plan, borrowers would pay 10% of their discretionary income for 5 years for undergraduate borrowers or 10% for 10 years for graduate borrowers. At the end of the period, any unpaid amount would be paid by the federal government. And finally, the fourth clause would be to restrict for-profit colleges and universities and to hold them more accountable for any of their predatory behaviors. So why is addressing the student loan crisis a priority? And more than anything, it's the size and deregulation of this industry that has caused debt to be held by 40 to 50 million borrowers. That's about 1 out of every 6 Americans over the age of 18 to summate to $1.5 trillion. Most strikingly, I guess it's 1/3 of young people ages 25 to 34 have a student loan with average debt of $30,000. So there's deregulation in the student loan market, and it has proved inefficient. This has increased the number of borrowers and higher balance loans, and it primarily disadvantages underserved communities. So the risk of default are catastrophic, such as ruined credit, garnished wages, garnished Social Security benefits, and seized tax returns. And the risk of default is highest for highly vulnerable borrowers, such as those that never finished college, so they don't have the degree to attain a higher income job to pay off their student loans, and borrowers who have dependents, such as single parents. Other notorious effects of the student loan crisis are, for example, homelessness, working multiple jobs, and other things. So, what is the cost of this solution? Unfortunately, there is no available data to tie in the student loan debt held by income, so I cannot really research the exact cost. However, in articles that I read, it would cost $1.5 trillion to forgive all student loan debt, and it would cost $250 billion to forgive up to $5,000 of student loan debt for all borrowers. So I extrapolated this data, and I'm going to make the assertion that this plan will cost between $250 billion to $1.5 trillion. So the U.S. Department of Education will modulate this debt, and it will be funded by a 2% annual tax on 75,000 families in the United States who hold more than $50 million in income. So this tertiary facet of this slide is largely researched by the Warren campaign. Elizabeth Warren is currently running for the Democratic presidential nominee seat. Okay, so what is the proposed effect of this solution? The effect number one would be, of course, to eliminate student loan debt for public and private borrowers and relieve those borrowers who fall under the low income bracket. So right now, private student loans represent about 8% of the total amount borrowed, or about $119 billion. Research has shown that student loan debt obstructs borrowers from saving and investing. So we're eliminating debt and also eliminating the need for loans, including eliminating the need for IDRs. So secondary and larger effects would be to stimulate the macroeconomy. Research on eliminating all student loan debt shows that it would increase annual GDP by up to $108 billion per year, increase real GDP by up to $1,083 billion over 10 years, increase household spending, creditworthiness, and home ownership, and a model where an all student loan debt is forgiven creates 1.2 to 1.5 million new jobs per year thereafter. It would also increase small business formation, degree attainment, and access to credit. So the effect of Clause 2 would be to make college affordable and accessible for lower income students. Research shows that higher household income is correlated with higher college enrollment. So the more you have household income, the more able you are to enroll in college. In this system, lower income students are disadvantaged and barred from attending college university due to the high cost in some situations. And this is what this graph on the right shows us. So solving student loan debt is a social justice issue because historically underserved communities are more disadvantaged by student loan debt. Student loan debt most impacts minority communities. Research by the Roosevelt Institute shows that outcomes for black graduates in the labor market are mediated by racial discrimination. So black grads are less likely to find a job and more likely to be paid less for the same job compared to their white counterparts. This results in a decreased ability to pay back those student loans. Also, communities of color are more likely to believe in credentialization to access a good job, such as going to medical school, attaining a PhD, or just getting an MBA to get a good job. So, third point is that black students hold more debt by age 25 compared to white students. This is due, again, to differences in labor market, which are further perpetuated by gender. And it's important here to note that the wage gap between minority communities and white communities is pretty large, and progress in closing the wage gap is stagnated. So there is a substantial wage gap not only between general minority population and the white population, but mostly between minority women and white males. And this, of course, affects the ability of minority women to pay back their student loans. So in conclusion, my plan would provide debt relief and free tuition to the most vulnerable communities, as well as those tertiary and quaternary clauses. And this is a social justice issue. Other considerations would be to require schools to provide information about their academic programs, such as graduation rates, success in earning a job directly after graduation, average job salaries for graduates, and also to increase restrictions for for-profit colleges. I want to thank you so much for watching my video, and I would be most humbled by receiving this scholarship award. Thank you. Have a nice day.